Well, let's talk about another passion of yours, I would guess, which is West Ham, and a team that's had an incredible season. What have you made of their success this year?
Well, what do you think I'm going to say? Absolutely.
Was it expected? Was it expected on your half?
No, it wasn't expected to be this good. I think we expected improvement. I think what has happened, quite frankly, over the last few years, I would say quite clearly the recruitment process on the acquisition of players has been very poor. I think there's no argument about that. I think managers will always make a mistake. Every top manager has made a mistake with a player. Buying somebody, you can probably class every manager that's ever managed at the top level has made a mistake with a particular signing. We made a lot of mistakes in the recruitment of players. One, whether they're too old, not physically fit. And when David Moyes came in, of course, on top of the amount of players I think recruitment were poor, when he analysed the work rate of the team when he came in into all the stats they have now on the physical attributes of a side, the amount of running they were doing was probably bottom of the league. So he's done a magnificent job and turning us around. I still don't think we've still got a long way to go. I'm not getting too excited. It's been fantastic and brilliant. We're not nowhere near the bottom as we have been for 2 or 3 years. Let's be fair about it. Looking over our shoulder, to be up there is absolutely magnificent. He's a fantastic manager. He's had a couple of ups and downs, but he had a great track record at Everton, and he's proved what a great manager he is. I think to be trying to get into the top four was probably always going to be a bit difficult. When you're competing with the other teams and the money they spend was going to be very difficult. But you never know, we could have made it. What I expect in the next few years is a consolidation of that kind of performance, that we are, to be sensible, getting some good results, comfortably in the top half, not looking over our shoulder, with an edge to closing. I don't think I'm going to make any progress that we're going to say we're going to be close to the Champions League every year and we've got a chance to get in here at this stage of our development and the money and the cost of players you've got to get to accrue compared with other clubs, what they spend. But to be comfortably up there, and I'm not too keen on the secondary Europe competition, the Europa competition. I think that can be quite negative in terms of travelling to these countries abroad during the middle of the week and then coming home the weekend and having to fight a tough game against any one of the Premier League teams. Even the bottom ones are going to give you a rough time if you've had a midweek trip. But I'd like to see just that comfortably placed, winning games, majors, and a good cup run. I'd just like to see us have a good cup run again. And that's quite not so arduous. You only play half a dozen games during the course of the second half of the season, and that can be fitted in. We're quite capable of that. So that's comfortably placed, just pushing that top 4 or 5. I think we've got a wee bit to go, but to quite a fair bit to go to be competing monetarily with the big boys, as we know who they are. But it's been a magnificent season, and David Moyes has done an absolutely fantastic job. And you see the team play today, and they are a different team. The work rate and the graph, and the team is quite evident from the camp. The team spirit, which is that is the important thing. The team spirit we had in '66, the camaraderie, is such an important factor for a group of players to work together and play together, and can overcome the fact they may be a tiny bit deficient in necessarily the quality and the expense that other clubs have got. You can, and they prove that consistently away from home. So yes, it's been a fantastic. Even my wife looking at the paper now, starting to talk about who we're playing and how many games you've got left and can we do it, which is quite remarkable for my wife in my house, who's not, although she's been very supportive of my football career. She's not a woman that picks up the paper regularly, says, how are West Ham doing? So that's been quite a major shock in the Hurst household.
You picked Declan Rice in your starting 11 for England. How important is it that West Ham keep him and David Moyes, or is it more important to recruit cleverly in the summer?
Well, it's important to keep the manager with what he's done. I mean, to change the manager after what he's done, I think will be, again, it comes to finance, whether I'm not sure contract, I don't know what the contract is. It's finishing what the money they've got. I know it's a pandemic, all clubs, all businesses suffering financially. So that's got to have an impact at all clubs, including our club. But they've got to try desperately to keep him because he's done a fantastic job. I think David himself would want to stay. I don't think David himself, unless it's a disaster, would want to move on after just 1 year at the club. because we've got a great stadium, we've got 60,000 fans, and to repeat what he's done. So I think he will want to stay, and subject to common sense, hopefully he will do. The Declan Rice situation, of course, is always an issue for a club like West Ham, who are outside the big boys. In my day, Man United came and offered the club a couple of $100,000, which is the biggest fee then. And Ron Greenwood, when the managers and the clubs had the power, Ron Greenwood sent a telegram back to Matt Busby, said no thanks, and that was it. And that's never bothered me. I achieved all I wanted to do at West Ham and England, and that, not for 1 second has it ever bothered me not having the opportunity to play at Man U. But today, over the last period of time, that's changed dramatically. When the big boys come in for the players at West Ham, and I'll go back not too long ago, the Rio Ferdinands and other players I can mention, they tend to move on. So that's going to be an issue, a big issue for the club and for Declan. There's no doubt, not only his club form is fantastic, but he's very comfortable at international level. I mean, that is, and he's been playing now in that position and playing very, very comfortably well, and doing an absolutely brilliant job, and a very important member of a team that stops things happening in the middle of the park. He just puts his foot in, and he's a great balance to the other two players I mentioned in the team, Foden and Mason Mount. A great balance. Difficult decision for him as a young player. I think probably with us doing so well last year, that may have helped a bit. I think had we been towards the bottom again, I think then he would look more likely to look at the big boys if West Ham had been struggling, as we have been for 2 or 3 years. So after I'm playing now in the setup at West Ham with the team and the camaraderie and in a good team, may help for him to consider staying on. But it's always a big issue. And historically, players, we've let some really good players go, as you know, not only play for other clubs, but gone on to play for England, Rio Ferdinand and others, which we know. So it's difficult, a difficult one.